looking back, just there's a few strands I'd like to unpick if that's okay. One is thinking back to the links to the local authority into health as far as their link to it. Is that something you found from the start they were engaged? Did that take some convincing? Was there engagement or?
We were very lucky that we had a very active county councillor, Eddie. Very early on, I went to Eddie. Actually, it was he was unveiling the, or he was involved in unveiling the Winston sign, village sign. And I took him aside. I said, Eddie, we've got this idea. We want to do this, etc. And he said, right, I'll go to the council, and we'll take it from there, etc. And one of the great things that came out of that very early one was I got a phone call from a chap called Alan Reynolds, and he said, I'd like to come and see you. I said, yeah, sure. And so he came and he sat here in our boardroom, the left-hand end of the dining room table, and he said, yeah, I'd like to hear what you are trying to do. And the more it went on, the more we said, wow, what can we do to help? And he was the lead on dementia for adult care at the time. And he proved what is actually very important is that when you're setting up projects to have dementia friends. Now this is not the same as dementia friends in terms of the government's or the Prime Minister's challenge. This is about having friends who can link you to others and can do it. So I could ring up Alan and say, look, I need this, and he'd say, oh, I'll sort it out for you. But he was sorting it out for me, not the other way round, if that makes sense to you. Yeah, so that came, and then we had to do a lot of networking. But wherever we went, we found positive support. Whether it, everybody said, well, actually, this is exactly what we want. And the district council, the local authorities, etc. Now, it may have been the way we approached it, but we've basically forged good friendships, whether it was there or in the charities or whatever. So the charities would say, oh, we'll turn a blind eye if our staff come and sort of sit in on your carers club or whatever. So it was what I think of as a true sort of collaborative process, and we've always tried to maintain that collaboration. Again, coming back to the professionals versus volunteers, there are things that they can do that we can't do, and there are things that we can do that they can't do. And one of the things that they pretty well find it difficult to do is develop the relationships, the friendships, which are essential to improving well-being. And if there's one thing I was saying, well-being is about being weller. There's no definition of of somebody actually having and being entitled to well-being, because I don't know how to define it, but I do know that you can help people to improve in terms of well-being, and and that is one of the key things which local authorities and the NHS need to be taking on board, and they are. The most of that. I mean, we've got well-being boards and things like this and so on, but they should be seeing how they can support, more than support, engage with, participate with community projects, whether they're little more than an odd coffee morning, or whether they over the years develop into something like the Debenham project. It's about, if somebody sets up a coffee morning to sort of help with an objective of saying, oh well, we've got a few people that we know are having a bit of a problem, we'll do that. Well, isn't that all an integral part of the health and social care system? And we can see, but it's a nature of the participation is important. It's not taking away the ownership. It's a supportive one. I like to use the sort of example, perhaps, of a parent and child. It's not a perfect example, but the parent will sort of let the child go, and the child will do it, and so then the parent will say, "Well, okay, I'll give you a bit of help." Maybe it's a bit of cash out of the back pocket or something like that. But it's not taking away the control from the child. It's letting it grow, and where you've got projects like this which spontaneously grow, then you're really saying, well, we think it's great, etc. What can we do to help, and how can we avoid hindering? Because it's very easy to create an environment or attitudes or whatever which said it's an us and them, or you get on and do it, and we think it's great. Now words are fine, but action's even better. And if you like, that's a story of the Debenham project. Words are fine in terms of improving dementia awareness, helping people in the communities to understand how some families may be having great difficulty, and how just because somebody behaves oddly in the supermarket doesn't mean that they're drunk. But actually proactively getting on and doing things to support them is action speaks louder. I hope that makes sense to you.
Yeah, it does. Sorry.
Own here had significant symptoms of dementia, but could cope with carers and things, and our family lived away, and people used to ask Jan, and I said, well, "Oh, you can't, people with dementia," etc. And Jan wrote this article, etc. He said it's just like taking your friend out for the afternoon or the morning or whatever, and you drive along and they say, "Oh, I used to walk along this road," and they could not possibly have walked along this road, and you hear the same stories time and time again. But it's just like taking your friend out, and that's what this project is a bit about. It's about friendships, family. Those are the sort of things that seem to be central to the and not the clinical side of things.
Okay. It would be really good to touch upon, and I'm sure Ed might have some other thoughts that pick on, but that exploring the benefits, the impact, what would life be like? That would be really helpful.
Right.
Good to look at. I'd like to look at the just a little bit, because I know it's an issue growing in Wales about the life after caring that person. We're finding in Wales, and it's not everywhere, but there's certain areas where when the person they're caring for passes away, they then suddenly become very isolated because they don't have access to the group, the what they had because of
Well, they do here.
And that little theme I'd like to capture, because you did mention it yesterday. It clicked. I thought, right, I must make sure, because I think that's really important. They don't get dropped almost. You no longer, and because that can cause a real person could spiral and become all sorts. So that would be good to capture. And the other theme I think would be good to capture, if that's okay, is the what next. I'd like to explore, and with that, how do people do it? Because I think you're right. It's not about picking up and dropping it. So should we start with the benefits and then?
Let's start with benefits, right? You asked about the benefits. So let's just say where we are in terms of the numbers game, because quite rightly numbers are important. So currently, this project delivers in one form or another something like 200 person sessions per month. A person session is somebody who has participated in the project for an afternoon or one of our clubs or lunches or whatever, etc. Let's now that really think about how many people we have in our community who we help and support. And this is back of the envelope stuff. Yeah, we've done all the calculations, we've done all the research, we've done an enormous amount, etc. But, in order to get, we need to sort of think in terms of orders of magnitude or whatever. So our project, it's 4 miles. Within that catchment circle, we would have something like 6,500 people. And doing their research and estimations, etc., we'd be thinking about something like 70 families. I put families in inverted commas because not everybody is in a family situation, but others are with neighbours, others are in families and so on, but just as a number, 70. We often think, though, of our catchment area as being that of the same as the group GP practice, and that's 8,500, slightly bigger. So within that we have a little bit over 100. And that 100 translates into order of magnitude 200 people who are coping with the impact of dementia on their lives. Then we have others who maybe they just a little bit frail or whatever. We don't turn anybody away because we don't ask for a diagnosis. In fact, we know of people within our participation who have quite significant symptoms, but they don't have a diagnosis, and they would be horrified if you said, "I'm afraid, Mildred, you've got dementia," or "we think you've got dementia." No, we don't label people in that way. Jan, who you'll be speaking to later, very early on said to me, you can't tell who's who. And that's a pleasure to be able to say, well, actually, yeah, we can recognize it, but we don't talk about it in the sense of that person, that person, that person. There was one occasion when we had somebody come in from outside, etc., and they did virtually that, and they've never been since. A professional. So that's the sort of figure we have in this area. And for that we provide these 200-person sessions per month, as well as advice and information, transport, all of these other bits and pieces on an informal basis. So that's if you like, those statistics. And for that we have something like 100 plus volunteers, and management, well, the management being the trustees is 5, and we have another 5 what we call task leaders. So looking at me, we're a lean organisation. The cost of this project rounds out on average at about £8,500 per annum. And that works out at, roughly speaking, £1 per head of population per annum, set against the GP's budget of a best part of £1,500 per annum. Or alternatively, £100, looking at £100 per annum, supporting each family estimated number of families coping with dementia. So it's not expensive. However, one is always pressurized, if you're in charge of providing funds, those 8,500, to be able to write it down on the balance sheet, the profit and loss account, if you like. But our benefits come anecdotally. They are the obvious improvements in people's well-being that we see and can chart. I'll give you a particular example. There was a couple, he was approaching 90, and his wife was also approaching 90. She had very significant symptoms of dementia. he had what I call medical kleptomania. We get old, we pick these things up. Bit of this and a bit of that and so on. But he was very, very frail, very frail. And he was her carer, and she was as strong as an ox. And they lived out in a very small rural enclave. So they were pretty well on their own, etc. And I came across them by virtue of a mutual friend who attended a rehab clinic with him. And she came to me and said, look, I've got this chap that I've met, etc., and he seems to be really struggling and so on. Is there anything you can do? Well, he agreed to sort of, that I could write to him. So I wrote to him and I said, I'll ring you up in a couple of weeks' time, etc. And I rang him up, and then over the next few months, we got to know each other. I'd ring up occasionally and we'd talk about it. He'd been in the engineering business, I was in the engineering business, so on. And gradually I persuaded him to at least come to what we call our annual garden party, even if it was only for a short while. And he said, well, he did, because he could still drive. And he came, and then gradually, and then we actually got more and more involved. And we even put on an exhibition of some of his model making work in the church, which was a 2-day event and so on, which was absolutely wonderful. And we saw, how over the years, what had been something which was virtually on the edge of collapse survived. It had its ups and downs, but it survived. Even him sort of having operations and things like this and so on, it survived all the way, and it must have been 4 or 5 years. And that's a crisis avoided for that length of time, and a family held together for that length of time. Now this is not, and that's a particularly graphic example, but that's not unusual. We had another particular more recent example. Somebody who was younger was diagnosed with dementia, and they took his license away. It was fortunate in a way that we were already in touch, or were just about sort of, somebody said, and we said, well, come along to the Carers Club, etc. And his wife managed to persuade him to come along, and she will say now that was a saviour of that particular family at that time, because he was so distraught because he could no longer drive. It's things like that that make a huge difference. And and anecdotally, it seems a soft option for argument, but it isn't, because the statistics can tell you almost anything. But if you've got those examples that I've shown of well-being improvement, it's very clear that there is a direct causal relationship between improvement in well-being and improvement in health and crisis avoidance or delay. So, that's the benefits. And that's the benefits to the participants, direct participants. But we also get the benefits to the community. This community, we are all very proud of this project. And it's not down to me, it's down to everybody. They say, this is something which we're proud to have achieved, because it means that now, and I come back to dementia awareness, it's much more powerful. It's word of mouth. And people are prepared, again in inverted commas, to talk about their problems in the street if they see me coming. And I say, I need a word. Can you? And it's a big step for a family, particularly a husband or a wife who've been married for 40 odd years, to go to their GP and say, I think, my husband has got, that's a big problem. It's a barriers there. Whereas quite often what they'd like is some sort of informal, friendly sort of interaction so they can talk about it and so on and so forth, and then that might lead on to them sort of tackling that problem. Or they may never tackle the problem of a diagnosis because they're so resistant. Who knows? But it's improved not only the well-being of the participants, but it's improved the well-being of the community. This is, in a way, it sounds awfully grand, and it's not, I don't intend it to be, but in a way it is this community taking responsibility for the health and social care, or a part of the health and social care of its neighbours, friends, community, residents. Does that make, I think that probably, I hope that I've got that over. But don't run away with the fact that this is, that this is the land of milk and honey. It isn't. It's better than some places, much better than some places, some other places. But it's not perfect. There's a huge amount that could be done, but you have to do what you can do and not overreach, not try to create something which is a corporation. We're not in that business. We're in the business of just getting on and doing things, and hopefully they help others.